Happy Easter, everybody. Joyous Pâques. We are back with the Finnigan 40K Last Stand series. A lot has happened since our last Stand series battle. So we had a 30K diorama come out, finished up my narrative crusade for my Cadian. There's going to be another narrative crusade with a mixed Imperial Guard army coming up in time, probably in the next couple of months. And then we also did the middleweight for the Fight 'em Up series. All of those can be found on the Finnigan 40K YouTube channel. So today, to bring us back to the Last Stand series, we have the Death Korps of Krieg that are coming in at 335 points, led by Lord Marshal Dreyer. Got some Death Riders here. We have an artillery piece, and then we have the combat engineers. So I kind of wanted to, as the past battles have always been, this is about lore, and this is a very lore-driven Krieg force. So we have artillery. There's going to be some creeping artillery going on from that cannon, and then the combat engineers kind of defending that as spore mines start dropping in around it, and then the Death Riders are going to head out and try to claim as many Tyranid as they can, with Lord Marshal Dreyer kind of buffing them out. These are a great addition to the Astra Militarum, and they're going to actually be in my mixed force as well. They've really got that hand-to-hand combat punch that I think the Imperial Guard have been missing. So as you guys saw in my last crusade there, the Ogren were in there for a few battles. They got pulled because there was just too many battle scars on them, and that was because they were really the only hand-to-hand combat force that could hold against some stronger enemies. But I'm really excited to get this one going. We're going to kind of shake off the rust here. It's been quite a while since we've done Last Stand series. The Tyranid force is exactly the same as they were previous. I've set them up, I think, almost 100% the same as they were. And the Tyranid force is made up of 1,195. And future Last Stand battle series are going to have a lot more armies coming out here too. So I got the new Codex Custodes. So we're going to see some Custodes out here, some Blood Angels, Raven Guard. I've always said from the very start they're going to be out here at some point. I have the new Emperor's Children models too, so I think they're going to make an appearance out here. Khorne is going to be getting a Codex there soon, and so are the Death Guard. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to wait out on those for a little bit until those Codex come out, but we'll definitely get some Chaos Space Marines in here as well. So good luck to the Death Korps of Krieg. What a nice force to put in on Easter long weekend. They're always a little depressing, but we'll see how they do. And we'll, of course, tally up everything at the end to see how they compare to the other forces that have gone previous to them. So here we go. Okay, so you just finished up the Death Korps of Krieg movement, and as per the lore, suicidal maniacs going in the name of the Emperor. So I'm going to test these guys out right away. They have completely surrounded the Von Ryan's Leapers, and we're going to see what these guys can actually do in hand-to-hand combat with their frag lances. It's going to be very interesting. Very good movement too, 10 inches, so they're able to jump right over the wall and get into hand-to-hand combat before the Von Ryan Sleepers even knew what was going on. They're now surrounded. So we are going to do the shoot as well. So if there's anything in range here, my combat engineers mainly have shotguns, so I'm going to have to see what's in range. But that artillery piece is definitely going to be able to do some damage, and I also want to test this thing out too. And as I said, a lot of these models are going to be showing up in my next Astra Militarum crusade, so I want to test them out here, and what a great way to start than in the Last Stand. So here we go. Okay, just back in here, I wanted to measure and see how my combat engineers are doing with their shotguns. They're just short of the Ripper Swarms here, so we're not going to be able to shoot them this round, but these guys are more here in defense anyways to protect our artillery piece. I am going to be firing this, and I'm going to be shooting it probably over here into the Termagant Horde and see what kind of damage it can do there. Again, testing this out to really see. I could start to put some rounds down on the Screamer Killer, but we'll see how it does against the Termagants first. There's still a little bit of movement for the Tyranid before they're into the facility, so I might be able to pop a shot off at them next with the artillery. And then this side here, we have, of course, the Parasite of Mortrex as well. But I think I'm going to drop an arty shell right into these Termagants and see what happens. So I'm going to go to the dice tray, roll that up, and we'll be right back. Alright, so dice tray time. This is the Siege Cannon, 48 inches. Those Termagant are definitely in range. It is D6 for attack, so we're going to see how many they get. It's a heavy. It hasn't moved this turn, so it's going to be getting a +1 to its ballistic skill. But first, we'll see how many how many shots we're going to get from it. 2, kind of crap, but we'll see. Usually 5+, it's 4+ with the heavy, so let's hope we can at least get these 2 off. and neither fired. So this is a good test. I don't have that roster locked up yet completely for my Astra Militarum mixed regiment, so we'll see if I continue doing that. The Siege Cannon, though, does have a strength 12, so against, you know, enemies like the Screamer Killer, it's actually going to do pretty well. And I think in my campaign with my Crusade, I might actually get another officer beside this thing to buff it out even more, to higher its ballistic skill to 3+, which I think would be better. So nothing this turn. It is moving back over to the Tyranid, going to do their move. And as you guys remember from the other Last Stand series, there's probably going to be some very similar movements. Actually, it's been a while. Knocking the rust off here. We have to do this hand-to-hand combat. So I'm going to do that in the dice tray as well, and we will see. The Death Riders have the initiative, so they get to attack first, and then if they can't kill those Von Ryan's Leapers, we know what they've done in the past. They're very devastating in hand-to-hand combat, so we'll see what happens. And then after that hand-to-hand, we'll get into the movement phase for the Tyranid. So hopefully it goes smoother. I'm kind of, you know, again, knocking off the rust here. It has been a while since Last Stand, but let's have a lot of fun, and we'll move over the dice tray and get the hand-to-hand combat going. I'm also going freehand with the camera today in the dice tray. I might hook this thing back up to a tripod just to make it easier on myself. But this is going to be the frag lances for the Death Riders. They do a D6 attack. So this is, you know, a frag grenade that's being plunged into the side of a Von Ryan's Leaper. It's going to do quite a bit of damage. So each of these, mattering on what we roll, is going to be how many dice I actually get to attack with. So very, very good in regard to the attack capability. The strength is not amazing. It's strength 4, but we will see what happens here. And each of these is a weapon skill of 3+, so pretty good to hit. That's on the same level as kind of a Space Marine, but let's see how many shots we get here. So not a great roll. Man, it's starting again. The rolls aren't great. So 5, 7, 8, 10. So we have 10 in total. So I'm just going to grab 5 more dice, count them up here just to be sure we got them all. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. All right, so this is 3+ to hit. That was a better roll. A couple came off there, so we had 2 here. There's no rerolls or anything, no rerolls there, but we do have quite a few through. It is strength 4 versus a toughness of 5, so we're going to need 5s to wound here. That one, okay-ish, about 50%, maybe just a little bit under. So we have 4 that are through. And they are 0 to AP, which is kind of boo-earns, but we'll see what we can do. And we still have the Sergeant's Power Saber as well. So this is going to be a 4+ save for the Von Ryan's Leapers. And it is 1 damage per, so we have 2 saves, and then 2 wounds have been delivered to one of the Von Ryan's Leapers. I'm just going to track that, make sure that the wound marker is indicating that, and then we're going to move over to the Sergeant and over to Lord Marshal Dreyer. So yeah, you get lots of attacks if you roll well, but the strength isn't amazing. So again, a really good test for my Crusade that's going to be coming up, because these guys are going to be taking on some pretty tough enemies there during a Crusade for the entire campaign. Anyways, this is the Power Saber for the Death Rider Sergeant. It is 3 attacks, hitting on 3+. That's good. All are through. It is strength 4 versus toughness 5, so we need 5s again here. And nothing is through. The nice thing about the Power Saber, at least it is a -2 to AP. I do have 5 other Death Riders that are equipped with those, so maybe in my campaign, instead of taking in the Frag Lances, I'll take those in instead. So that is it for my Death Riders. We're going to get it going here in just a sec for Lord Marshal Dreyer, and I'm hoping that he can at least kill that one Von Ryan's Leaper that's wounded, because if not, the Von Ryan's Leapers are going to be attacking with a counterattack right away. All right, and the last attack here for this hand-to-hand combat for the Death Korps of Krieg is Lord Marshal Dreyer. I was a little surprised to see that this guy only has a las pistol as his ranged weapon. You'd think a Lord Marshal would have like a plasma pistol, or maybe even at least a bolt pistol with a bit more strength, but that's his loadout. So this guy is pretty much made for hand-to-hand combat and speed, because the las pistol is going to do nothing against Chaos Space Marines or anyone like that. So we have the Saber of Sacrifice. It is 6 attacks, hitting on a 2+. So that is pretty good. All are through except for 1. It is a higher strength, strength 6 versus toughness 5. So this is going to be 3s to wound. And pretty good roll again. Only 1 fell off. And it is -2 to AP, which brings the von Rhein's-Leapers up to the 6+ invulnerable. So here we go. And they have all failed. It is 1 damage per, so that's going to be 4 wounds. I'm going to go do that because there's some extra attacks from the Savage Claws of the Death Rider horse that Lord Marshal Dreyer is on. So this is going to be 4 wounds allocated. So they have killed one of the von Rhein's-Leapers and wounded another, and then we'll see if those Savage Claws can finish it off. So I'll just get the wound token all lined up, take the von Rhein's-Leaper off the board, and I'll be right back to finish up the hand-to-hand. All right, so with those 4 kills, actually, or the 4 wounds, it actually killed another von Rhein's-Leaper because they only have 3 wounds. So they finished off the one, and then another was killed. So this is the Savage Claws now. It is 2 attacks hitting on a 4+, and neither have gone through. So there's at least 2 von Rhein's-Leapers dead from that turn, but they do get to attack back, and there is 1 left, which can definitely take out these Death Riders. So I'm going to get that going here. All right, so we're back here. It is 6 attacks hitting on 3+. So a couple fell off. Good for the Death Riders. So 4 are through. It is strength 5 versus toughness 4. So this is going to be 3s to wound for the von Rhein's-Leaper. And all are through. -1 to AP. So it is a 5+ save for the Death Riders. So here we go. And they saved 1, but there is 1, 2, 3 wounds that have been delivered. So that means that there is a Death Rider that has died, and then another has taken a wound in this first round. Okay, that ends the Death Korps of Krieg turn 1. The artillery didn't do much. Combat engineers are out of range. The Death Riders were able to go in and take out 2 von Rhein's-Leapers. The sole von Rhein's-Leaper left, though, however, counterattacked, was able to kill one of the Death Riders and then wound another. So we're going to see what happens now. It is over to the Tyranid, and there are a lot of models to move, a lot of models that are going to be in range to shoot. These barb gaunts are going to be able to probably shred apart those Death Riders, so we'll see. But I'm going to be playing hard for the Tyranid as I always do. I don't know if I'll be rolling everything in the dice tray for them, but I'll come back and sum everything up to keep the video kind of nice and tight and short. And if it is kind of a little sped up or fast, haven't done it for a while, so thanks guys for the patience, and it's a good one to get the rust knocked off and start this back up. But over to the Tyranid, and we'll see what they do with their move. Tyranid move is complete, and as per the previous battles, very similar to what we've seen. Screamer Killer just outside of the facility. Parasite of Mortrex moved in. Gargoyles are just outside. Von Rhein's-Leapers were actually able to get over the wall in the first turn, so I may have not had them as far back as I had in previous battles, but there's still a little ways to go before they get around there to the combat engineers. Ripper Swarms moved up. Barb Gaunts are going to stay here and shoot at anything that they can see that's in range. I don't think... Yeah, those combat engineers might be, so I'll have to check the line of sight and see. They might get a cover save, though. The Ripper Swarms moved in against the 4 remaining Death Riders. The von Rhein's-Leaper moved in against Lord Marshal Dreyer. Dreyer actually has a pretty cool ability where he can come back after being killed, though, so I'm going to see how that works as well in this fight. 20 Termagants are here as well to put any firepower down on any Death Riders that survive. Turvagons moving in. Termagants, and then this damn thing, the Biofor, the artillery piece for the Tyranid, is going to be a huge problem for the artillery piece because this thing's pretty much stuck in here. So if spore mines start to drop in around it and float towards it, it's going to be a bit of a trick to get those killed. Again, that's why the combat engineers are in there. So we'll see how this goes. It's moving over to the Tyranid shoot phase, and I'll be back to show you guys what happened from that. Alright, so Tyranid shoot phase is done. We had the Biovore drop a spore mine into the facility here. It's 9 inches away from the heavy artillery there, and it can't move too quickly. The siege cannon might have to bore the brunt of that spore mine. We'll have to see. The barb gaunts, there's only 2 that were in range here, and they fired in and were able to kill one of the combat engineers. They had a cover save. It didn't help. One was a 1 roll, and then there was 2 6 rolls that were made from the attacks that made it through. So 1 Krieg combat engineer has died. Now we're moving over to the dice tray here. I am going to roll this one, especially for Dryer and the Von Rein's Leaper. The Ripper Swarms I may just do and then show you guys the aftermath of that, but we're going to figure this one out right now in the dice tray and show you guys Dryer's turn and then come back and see what happens to the Death Riders. Going to start off the Tyranid hand-to-hand combat phase with the Von Rein's Leaper fighting against Lord Marshal Dryer. The Von Rein's Leaper has the initiative here, so it is 6 attacks hitting on a 3+. Pretty damn good roll. One fell off. This is Strength 5 versus Toughness 4, so this is going to be 3s to wound. And a couple fell off, so that's good for Dryer. Luckily, these are just 1 damage, but it is -1 to AP, so that does bring Dryer up to his vulnerable save, as well as his regular save of 4+, so we're looking for 4s here. And he was able to make 2, and then 1 damage has gone through, so Dryer is down to 5 wounds, and he's going to be able to fight back here in just a sec. Pretty good round there by Dryer. Was able to save almost all of them, took 1 wound, so he's down to 5, but now he's able to counterattack here, so he has the Saber of Sacrifice, 6 attacks hitting on a 2+. And all are through, fantastic. I'm looking through the camera just like you guys are. I didn't look down at the dice tray there. This is Strength 6 versus Toughness 5, so 3s to wound. Pretty good. So 2 fell off. There's still 4 through. Definitely, hopefully enough to kill this Von Rein's Leaper. It is a -2 to AP, so that brings our Von Rein's Leaper up to the 6+ invulnerable. Here it is. Ooh, and it is 1 damage per, but that is enough to kill. So there were no saves made, so that is 4 wounds through onto a 3-wound Tyranid, and Lord Marshal Dryer has finished off the final Von Rein's Leaper, and that's pretty good tally for them so far. So over to the Ripper Swarms. I'm going to roll that, and then I'll show you guys the outcome of that on the field in just a sec. All right, so the hand-to-hand combat phase is all done. We had Dryer take out that Von Rein's Leaper but lose a wound, and then we had the Death Riders attacked by the Ripper Swarms. The Ripper Swarms were not able to deal any damage, and the Death Riders during their counterattack were able to kill 1 base of Ripper Swarms and bring 1 down to 2 wounds. So it is moving back over to the Death Korps of Krieg. I'm going to have to take some time here, do some strategy, make sure I'm not throwing away my Death Riders like pieces of candy. And then hopefully this artillery siege cannon is going to be able to actually do some damage. Last time it did barely anything, and there's going to be a lot of Tyranid around it very soon, and it's not very mobile. So Spore Mine around back, Von Rein's Leapers coming in around the corner. The combat engineers are only going to be able to hold them off for so long. So we're going to see, this might be a quick one, but very good test for this new Death Korps of Krieg, and they are a very low point at 335. Most of the Last Stand series, I allow them up to 500 points, and they've been high 300s, a couple in the low 400s, so we'll see. I think I'm going to do the Custodes next as well, which is going to be our most expensive force, but that's no surprise. Most expensive and least models, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, over to the Death Korps of Krieg for their movement, sum all that up, and we'll take this Last Stand series as it goes. Death Korps of Krieg movement done, and I'm going to definitely try out some pretty cool stuff during this turn with the combat engineer unit as well as my siege cannon. So the siege cannon didn't move, but it did rotate around. It's going to try to put some rounds down on that larger termagant swarm over there that's getting close to Lord Marshal Dryer. I'll cover that in just a sec. This thing can move 3 inches, but I don't want to lose its heavy ability, which would affect its ballistic skill, so I just did a bit of a rotation there, and it's going to be putting some rounds down on those termagants and hopefully get some wounds. Over here, the combat engineers lost a model last turn. They have the remote mine that's going to be used against the Von Rein's Leapers here, hopefully going to do some really great damage. And then they've got some pretty good weapons there too, so Flamer, shotgun, and then this auto pistol from the sergeant is just amazing. Like it's like a 9mm like Luger pistol, or 45 ACP or something in the year 40,000, so it's kind of funny, but we'll see how it goes. And then over here, the Death Riders do not want those barb gaunts to be firing into them, so they have gone right into them into hand-to-hand combat, and I'm hoping that they can do some damage. Very good experience here, just learning how these guys work, and I think I'll be taking in those power sabers instead of the frag lances during the Crusade narrative, but we'll see how it goes. And then Lord Marshal Dryer has gone into the remaining 2 Ripper Swarms to hopefully clean them up before any of these Termagants, Turvagon, and other things can start to shoot at them. So it's going to, I don't know, the Death Korps of Krieg may last a little bit longer than I thought. We'll see how it goes here. Need to get some really good rolls, though, to be able to up the kill tally, because this is what it is all about. Last Stand series is seeing which Imperium or defending force is able to get the most kills. So over to the dice tray now. Going to roll a whole bunch of stuff, come back, show you guys the shoot phase, and then we'll move into hand-to-hand to finish it up. Alright, so before I start doing any other shoots for the Krieg models, I wanted to see how this remote mine does. I'm just going to read off what it's capable of doing. So once per battle, at the start of your shooting phase, you can select 1 enemy unit within 9 inches of and visible to the bearer and roll 1d6. On a 3+, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds or 2d3 mortal wounds instead if it's a vehicle or a fortification. So this is against Von Ryan's Leapers, so we're looking for a 3+ here, and this is once per battle. So it doesn't really say if it doesn't go off, like was it a dud, did it explode and nothing happened. So I'm going to keep this thing going until I roll a 3+, but we're definitely hoping for a 3+ here, and then we'll see what happens to the Von Ryan's Leapers. So got a 4, that's great. No more questions, we were able to roll the 3+. So I'm just going to show you guys over here, my little remote mine token has kind of gone right in, and it's going to explode on the Von Ryan's Leapers. That's the noise of those, if you guys are ever wondering. Definitely lore, so it goes wee 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 wee. That's the sound it makes. So this is going to be D3 mortal wounds. So there's no save here. Not even invulnerable can save it. So we're going to see hoping for a 6. It's a 3, not amazing, but it is 2 wounds delivered to the Von Ryan's Leapers. So one of those Von Ryan's Leapers is down to 1 wound, and the remote mine has exploded, and it has been removed, but was worth a shot. I was hoping to maybe kill one of them, but it's taken 2 wounds, so we'll see. Help the combat engineers maybe. I'm going to do the rest of the shoots, and then I'll sum all that up in just a sec. So just to sum up here, the shoot phase isn't done, but I fired with the remaining combat engineers. So we have a flamer here, we have the auto pistol, we have a combat shotgun. None of them were able to even hit. I'm going to definitely have to try to soup these guys up if I bring them into my narrative crusade, because that's just not cutting it. So I was really hoping that I'd be able to at least kill that last Von Ryan's Leaper that the remote mine blew up. And next turn, these guys are going to be just shredded by the Von Ryan's Leapers, and that's the end of my siege cannon defense. So the siege cannon is going to fire now, really hoping for some good rolls. I'm not holding my breath. My Imperial Guard and Astra Militarum rolls have been garbage for a lot of the games I've played, but let's see how it goes. So Siege Cannon, gonna roll that and then show you guys the aftermath, and hopefully that whole horde of Tyranid over on the right hand side there is just gonna be decimated, but again, not holding my breath, we'll see. I don't know if this battle's ever gonna get finished because I continue to keep rolling, but I just fired with the Siege Cannon. And what do you guys think? You think that Termagant horde has been decimated or what? No, look at this. Not a single model destroyed, and it is because I rolled 3 1s. So you get a d6 roll to see how many hits you get. I got a 3, not bad, 50%. You need 4 pluses because this is heavy, and I rolled 3 1s. So Death Korps of Krieg, geez Louise, guys, come on. At least in hand-to-hand they're doing okay, so I might just keep them as hand-to-hand units during my Crusade narrative. We'll have to see, but let's see how they do. I'm going to be rolling all of those hand-to-hand combat moves off camera. I'll come back and show you guys, and really hoping that the dice rolls are going to start to turn in my favor. But right now, this turn for the combat engineers and the siege cannon has been absolute garbage. So over to hand-to-hand. So not a great turn there by the Death Korps of Krieg, and it's coming back over to the Tyranid here, which is not going to be good. I don't think the Krieg are going to survive much more after this turn. So we had the Death Riders go in and attack the Barbgaunts. Nothing happened. The Barbgaunts were allowed to counterattack. Nothing happened there either. But now the Death Riders are pretty much staring the Barbgaunt launchers right in the face, so they're going to be getting a whole bunch of shots coming their way in just a sec. And then Lord Marshal Dreyer was the only one that actually got any kills, so he was able to kill a base of Ripper Swarms and then take this last Ripper Swarm down to 1 wound. So he might be the only model over on this side very soon, because the Barbgaunts have the ability to get a lot of shots off, and if it rolls high, it's going to be a lot of saves to be made. It's a 4+ save for the Death Riders, so we'll see. But I don't know. On this side here, as we saw, The combat engineers were not able to do much other than the remote mine, and they are in range for those leapers to just leap right on them and start to use those talons to just rip them apart. And then in the back end here, I'm pretty sure that the siege cannon is going to be the only thing left here as well, and the spore mine from the Tyranid is moving ever closer, and the Tyranid are also going to be able to put another one in there very soon. So it's going to be 2 or 3 by the end of this battle that are going to be possibly exploding and doing some major damage to the siege cannon. So back over to the Tyranid, going to do their move, come back, show you guys what's happened, and we'll go through the shoot and the hand-to-hand combat phase if that's required. Well, shit. You know how I said Dryer might be the last one over here? I don't know anymore. The Turvagon was in range. It has jumped into hand-to-hand combat at the back of Dryer, and then a Ripper Swarm at the front. It would be hilarious if the Turvagon attacked, Dryer saved all of those, and then was killed by, you know, the Ripper Swarm if he only had 1 wound left or something. We'll see. The walls have started to be breached as well. We have the Screamer Killer inside the facility, the Parasite of Mortrex inside the facility. The Von Rhein's Leapers have jumped into hand-to-hand combat with the combat engineers. Our siege cannon is back here, still trying to lob artillery shells all over the field to help out, even though it hasn't really done much. And to start off the shooting phase, I've lobbed in the second spore mine, which is on the right-hand side here, 9 inches away. The other one's moved up 3 inches, and they're going to be, as soon as they're within 3 inches of that siege cannon, they're going to explode with the floating death ability. And I don't want to move the siege cannon, because if I do, I'm going to lose the heavy ability that's giving it that extra ballistic skill right now. So it's looking pretty grim for the Death Korps of Krieg, but this is what they live, or I should say die for. You know, their death in battle, and their attrition is all for the Emperor. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to do the shoot phase here. Barb Gaunts are going to be rolled in the dice tray, see how many Death Riders survive that. And then I'll move into hand-to-hand combat and might roll a few of those on camera to see how the Von Rhein's Leapers do against the combat engineers over here, and how the Turvagon and the Ripper Swarm does against Lord Marshal Dryer. So over the shoot phase, and I'll be right back to show you guys the outcome of that. You liking this battle so far? Hey, are you tired? It's a tough life, eh? Tough life being a little pug. Yeah. Oh, you're tired. Yeah. All right, that was Homer, guys. He's really cheering me on here. So shoot phase is done. This is really the only shoot that could occur. So the Barb Gaunts fired into the Death Riders. They killed 1, and there was already a Death Rider that was down to 1 wound previous, so that carries over. They got 18 shots though, and the Death Riders were able to make a lot of saves. It could have been a lot worse, so they are still hanging on. And now we're moving over to the hand-to-hand combat for Dryer, the combat engineers. And good luck to them, because they're definitely going to need it. I'm going to be rolling both of those in the dice tray, because I think it should be pretty dramatic and fun. So over to the dice tray, and we'll get that going. All right, so before we get this hand-to-hand combat going between Dryer and the Turvagon, I just want to read his ability of Tough to Kill. So if the Turvagon kills him here, there's a very good chance the Dryer is going to be back. So the first time this model is destroyed, roll 1d6. At the end of the phase, on a 2+, set this model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where it was destroyed, and not within engagement range of any enemy units, with D3 wounds remaining. So he's coming back here no matter what, which is pretty cool. First off, though, it is going to be the Turvagon fighting with its massive scything talons. So this is 8 attacks hitting on 3+. Pretty good. A few fell off. It is strength 7 versus toughness 4. So that is going to be 3s to wound. Oops, one came off there. 3s to wound. And 1 fell off again. It is a -1 to AP with this, so that brings Dryer up to his 4+ and vulnerable. And every save that is not made here is 2 damage. So those 2 were saved. However, 2 4 wounds have gone through, and Dryer has 1 wound remaining with a lot of Turvagon attacks still. Okay, next up is the massive Crushing Claws from the Turvagon. 4 attacks hitting on 4+. 2 fell off, 50%. It is, however, strength 12 versus toughness 4, so 2s to wound here. And both are through. It is a -3 to AP, so Dryer is getting his 4+ and vulnerable here again. Oh, It would have been amazing if he saved that, but this one is through. It is D6 plus 1 damage. He's already dead, but let's just see how many wounds were actually allocated. 4 plus 1, so that was 5, so that would have almost killed him outright from the start. However, he does have his tough to kill ability, so we're going to roll that. We need a 2+ here. If it's a 1, he's done. If it's a 2+, somehow he survived, I guess, being, you know, cut in half by the Turvagon. Maybe he lost a leg or an arm instead, though. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's a 2+, so hopefully he survives this one. He just made it, so it's a 2. Holy crap. So we're going to be setting him back up. So he has died, but he is tough to kill, so he's going to be back here in just a sec, and I'm going to be setting him up with his D3 wounds remaining. So we're hoping for a 6 here. Let's see how much he gets. It's a 3, so he's coming back with 2 wounds on his second life. All right, so just before I get onto the hand-to-hand combat phase between the Death Riders and the Combat Engineers and the Von Ryan Sleepers, Lord Marshal Dreyer, he's all busted up, probably has his bionic leg missing or a bionic arm missing. He's back on the field though with 2 wounds inside the facility, so just outside of engagement range of the Ripper Swarms and just outside the engagement range of the Turvagon. So he is going to now probably be that sole defense left for the siege cannon, and we're going to have to use him very strategically because as these spore mines continue to get closer, they're going to explode. Now over to the Von Ryan's Leapers against the Combat Engineers. I'm going to roll that in the tray as well, and we're really hoping that somehow they can survive this. All right, so this is it possibly for the Combat Engineers. Von Ryan's Leapers. The big thing here was if they had at least killed 1, they would have been facing maybe 12 attacks. Or if there was only 1 left, they would have been facing 6. This is full 3 Von Ryan's Leapers, so that's 18 attacks, hitting on a 3+. I think it's going to be lights out. Not a great roll. A few have fallen off. So there's a 2, some 1s. Yeah, still probably more than enough, but we'll see what happens here. It is strength 5 versus toughness 3. So this is going to be 3s to wound. A few more fell off. Couple 2s, couple 1s. Okay, looking possibly, we'll see. It is -1 to AP, so this brings our Combat Engineers up to a 5+, which is still not the worst since they start with a 4+. Any other Imperial Guard model would be up to a 6+ right now, so let's hope for some 5+s here. Not enough. So there was 1 saved, but there's been 2, 4, 6, 7 wounds delivered. That is the end of our Krieg Combat Engineers, and that was kind of the last line of defense on that side of the field. So they have all been killed, and that is completely open now to how the Von Ryan's Leapers attacking the siege cannon. So Dreyer is going to have to either kill some spore mines or try to take on 3 Von Ryan's Leapers by himself. But hey, they're Death Korps of Krieg. They're supposed to die. This is the last stand. They're supposed to get those tallies up as high as they can before that happens. So we will see what the rest of this battle has. Krieg movement phase done. Not too many models to move now. There weren't really too many to start with either, but the Death Riders have blown this wall out and have gone into hand-to-hand combat again with the Ripper Swarms in hopes that they're going to be able to get that kill tally up. They have 2 at full wounds, then 1 at 1 wound. And then in here to buy the siege cannon as much time as he can, Dreyer's gone in again with his second life, 2 wounds remaining into the Von Ryan's Leapers. He is going to get the initiative there, so hopefully he can maybe kill 1 or 2, and that's going to help his chances in the counterattack. So we're going to do the shoot here. I'm going to be firing my siege cannon again. I think I might actually pop it into the barb gaunts to try to get them. So I'm not moving, I'm just going to rotate it. So they're just getting the... There we go. And yeah, I'm going to be rolling that in the tray. I'll come right back and show you guys what happens. Alright, that is the end of the shoot phase. The siege cannon fired into the barb gaunts. It did kill 1 and wound another, so finally the first kill for my siege cannon. I think this thing will be really good if I can get an officer beside it to buff it out. It's just that's going to have to be a Death Korps of Krieg officer, and commissars cannot give any of the buffs for ballistic skill. So we're going to have to see how that goes, but I think I'm going to keep this thing in my narrative crusade just to see how it goes and to give that, you know, fire support. But they were able to finally kill a barb gaunt. It's now moving over to hand-to-hand. I think I'm probably going to roll for Dreyer because this is pretty cool, taking on 3 Von Ryan's Leapers on the second life. and then I'll probably roll this one off camera and come back and show you guys. But over to the dice tray in just a sec here to see Dreyer take on the 3 Von Rhein's Leapers. I have a feeling this might be the end of Lord Dreyer here unless he can get some fantastic rolls. He is on a second life, so when he dies here, he's not coming back. This is the Saber of Sacrifice, 6 attack, hitting on 2+. Yes, all are through. Great way to finish up here. Is the end of him. It is Strength 6 versus Toughness 5, 3s to wound. Oh my god. It continues. So 1, 1, 1, 2. So that is 5 out of the 6 that have not hit. 1 is through. So hey, this is a 6+ save for the Von Rhein's Leaper. Made a 2. So he has killed that last one that was wounded by the combat engineers. But it's back over to the Von Rhein's Leapers here in just a sec. And fingers crossed, Dreyer does have that invulnerable save. So we'll see what happens. Ooh, I almost forgot. Dreyer does have the extra attacks from his steed there. So the Savage Claws. It won't kill another one, but at least it'll hurt it. So this is going to be 2 attacks hitting on 4+. 1 is through. It is Strength 4 versus Toughness 5, so 5 to wound. And it's a 3. So nope. Over the Von Rhein's Leapers, one good thing about it, he is facing 12 attacks now instead of 18. So that is going to up his chances a little bit with the invulnerable, but that's still a lot of saves to make and a lot of attacks to take. So going to grab those dice right now, cut the camera, come right back, and I'll show you guys how that goes. Yeah, so the whole holding the camera here is great for editing because I can just literally have the same SD card to move back and forth between the battle and the dice tray. It's just really tricky to hold the camera with one hand and also roll the dice and look at my iPads, but we'll figure something out. I might just start doing a second camera again, and just makes editing a little more tricky, but it'll definitely make the rolling more fun. So this is the Leaper's Talons. It is 12 attacks because there are 2 of them, and it is hitting on 3+. Okay, so a few fell off. Still a lot through, and Dreyer only has the 2 wounds left. So this is Strength 5, Toughness 4, 3s to wound. Yeah, 3 more fell off. Okay. It's upping his chances of survivability a little bit more here. So there are 5 attacks going through. It is -1 to AP, which brings Dreyer up to his 4+ invulnerable. So here we go. Holy shit. He saved every single one of them. That's incredible. So he is still going in Death Korps of Krieg fashion. This guy won't go down. And if he does, it's for the Emperor anyway. So Dreyer has survived 12 attacks from the Von Rhein's Leapers and 5 that actually made it through. So he is still going. I'm going to move over to the other Death Riders now and see how they do. Amazing work by Dreyer though. And we'll see how this battle goes. Maybe he will be the last model left. But over to this one, I'm going to roll that off camera and then come back and show you guys the outcome. That ends the Death Korps of Krieg turn. Fantastic by Dreyer. He was able to withstand some wounds there. Actually, a lot of wounds, as we saw in the dice tray, and also kill one of the Von Rhein's Leapers. Over here, my Death Riders were able to kill 1 base of Ripper Swarms and bring another down to 2 wounds. Now, however, there is the Screamer Killer very close to them, which might not have liked that it was attacking its little buddies there. And then also the Barbagons can fire into the back of the Death Riders. Either way, I don't think they have much time left. But again, these Death Korps of Krieg won't die very easily, so they're still kicking. It's going to be moving back over to the Tyranid now. And those Spore Mines as well are going to be getting in close. If it's within 3 inches of the siege cannon, there's a possibility that it's going to take some mortal wounds. So I'm going to move around the Tyranid, do their turn, come back, show you guys how that all ends up. And I'm going to have to do some strategy here with them too, just to make sure that they are finishing off these Death Korps of Krieg models as quickly as possible, because they're becoming a bit of a bother for them. So see how it goes. Okay, Tyranid move is done. Not really moving any of these extra models out here. They'll be needed if by some chance these Death Korps continue to survive. The Von Rhein's Leapers have jumped in against Dreyer again, this time taking the initiative, so they're going to be the ones attacking him first. If he does somehow survive, he will be able to counterattack. The Warlord for the Tyranid, the Parasite of Mortrex, has moved in as well, kind of hanging around in case that they don't finish him off, and then it can jump in and do the job. The spore mine here has moved up 3 inches and now is actually within 3 inches of the siege cannon. So there's going to be some mortal wounds. They're going to be rolled off in the tray in just a second. And then down here, the Carnifex, Screamer Killer. I always call this thing a Carnifex. It is the old Carnifex model that's been kind of remade, but it had enough of the Death Riders poking at its little buddies there, the Ripper Swarm, so it said enough of that, and it jumped right in, and it is in hand-to-hand combat with the Initiative versus the 3 remaining Death Riders. That is it for the Allied models. Over here as well, if there's any need for these guys to move in and start firing with their guns, they can, and then the Turvagon as well is kind of held back. Barb Gaunts are here as well, and there's going to be another spore mine fired from the Biovore here in just a sec also, but that will be in the shoot range, or in the shoot phase. So we're going to go to the dice tray and see how many mortal wounds are delivered to the siege cannon. Okay, so this is the spore mine's Floating Death. So just to read off the ability here, each time this unit or an enemy unit ends a move for each model in this unit that is within 3 inches, which is the case here, definitely in 3 inches of the base of the siege cannon. Select one of those enemy units. That model in the unit is destroyed. Then roll 1d6. On a 2 to 5, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So the spore mine is going to explode. So it has been destroyed as of this point. And we're going to be rolling a d6. On a 2 to 5, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. So we want a 1 here if you're a Krieg, and we want a 2 to 6. Hopefully a 6 if you're cheering for the Tyranid. So here we go. It was a 1, so nothing has been done. The spore mine has exploded. That's also part of the tally because it was expended to try to kill these Death Korps of Krieg, and the Death Korps of Krieg just continued to keep moving on. So there was a 1 rolled there. Floating Death has not occurred, and it's back over to the Tyranid here for their shoot. There's going to be another spore mine dropped in. Actually, I can probably do that while I'm on camera. So here we go. Boop. I know that this pillar is about 9 inches out from the siege cannon as it has not moved. So there it is. This spore mine here, if it moves next turn, it's going to be up to that 3-inch point again. So see what happens, and hopefully we can roll another one. But over to the hand-to-hand combat now for Dryer and for the Death Riders, and we'll see if they can survive another turn. Rolling again for what is possibly Dryer's last turn here. We've said that a few times now, and the guy keeps going. So let's see how this goes. This is 12 attacks coming from the Von Rein's Leaper Talons. 6 attacks per, 12 in total, hitting on 3+. So a 2, a 1, a 1, still a pretty damn good roll. Strength 5 against toughness 4, 3s to wound as well. And we've got a 1 and a 2. So these are all through. -1 to AP, bringing Dryer up to his 4+. So let's see how this goes. Looking for 4s here for Dryer. He did it once. Let's see if he can do it again. Oh, no. Not this time. So he did save 2. Was able to either deke or beat away a couple of those Talons, but there has been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wounds. And that would have almost killed him outright during his first turn or his second life, mattering on what he got. But Dryer has fallen, and the Von Rein's Leapers now have an open shot to the siege cannon. So good fight, Dryer. He did great, survived quite a bit, was able to fend off a Turvagon, come back to life, but that was it. So now I'm going to move over to the Death Riders and the Screamer Killer and see how that goes next. Might as well keep this going. It is the Screamer Killer now versus the remaining Death Riders. Screamer Killer Talons, 10 attacks, hitting on 3+ at strength 10. Just trying to get this thing back in focus. There we go. So we have 1 that's fallen off. All of these are through, so we have 9 attacks through. One of them just turned over there to a 2, but it was a 3. So this is strength 10 versus toughness 4. 2s to wound. Wow, quite a few fell off there actually. I was expecting higher rolls, but this might still be enough because it is 3 damage per. So it's -2 to AP. The Death Riders do not have an invulnerable save, so they're going to be having to make 6+ saves here. 1 was saved, however, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 damage has gone through. Each Death Rider only has 2 wounds, so this has killed them outright. The Screamer Killer has done away with the remaining Death Riders, and our sole model left on the board for the Death Korps of Krieg is the Siege Cannon. There's the aftermath. The Death Riders have been wiped out by the Screamer Killer. However, it is going back over to the Death Korps here, and they're going to be able to get one more attack off with the Siege Cannon. So I'm going to fire that into wherever I can get the most wounds, I think. Probably either this group or this group, mattering on what kind of rolls I can get. I could also fire into the lone Ripper Swarm there. It's only got 1 wound left. I'd like to get as many kills in as I can here before this thing goes down, and it does have 10 wounds, so we'll see what happens. Maybe it can withstand a few more attacks and keep firing. So they got that gun line defense going to try to hold off whatever's around them. They're just going to try to continue to drop shells for as long as they can. So I'm going to roll that off camera and show you guys what they were able to do. All right, end of the Death Korps of Krieg shoot phase. They were able to drop a shell down into these termagants and killed 3 of them. I rolled a d6, which was amazing. I was really hoping to do well, but this thing did not roll its 4 pluses that it needed. It rolled a 6. The remaining were all under a 4. And there's 3 damage, so at least it was able to kill 3 termagants. It now moves back over to the Tyranid, so I will do their movement phase. There's going to be some Spore Mines coming in here. There's going to be Von Ryan's Leapers. So I'm probably going to roll a little bit in the dice tray there too for the floating death and see what happens to this thing. Okay, so the Spore Mine has moved up in its movement phase. That was the first turn for the Tyranid. It is within 3 inches now of the Siege Cannon. Last time the Krieg models got super lucky and nothing happened. So I read the floating death previous. We're looking for a 1 here in the dice tray for the Krieg. 2 to 5 for the Tyranid, or a 6. So let's see what happens, and if the Krieg can get another 1 here from the Spore Mine, it would be fantastic. So here we go. It was a 5. That's not good. So the 2 to 5, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So that's not the worst thing that could happen. So the Siege Cannon is down to 9 wounds, and that is another Tyranid model off the board. Gonna finish up the rest of this movement phase. I think the Parasite of Mortrex might be in range. The Von Ryan's Leapers definitely are. So that's going to be pretty tricky there. We'll roll that in the dice tray as well, but I don't think anything else is really in range. We'll have to see. I'll do some measurements and come right back and show you guys what the Tyranid have done. There's our Krieg Siege Cannon team. They are starting to get swarmed and swamped here. The walls are starting to cave in around the facility, and there are models that are in hand-to-hand combat with them. So from that movement, we have the Parasite of Mortrex in, 2 Von Ryan's Leapers in, the Carnifex is just around the corner, the Turvagon has broken down a wall and is coming into the facility as well. The 2 Ripper Swarms are back here, and we're going to see if that Krieg luck continues. They're down to 9 wounds, so not their full wounds any longer either. But the Siege team, or the Siege Cannon team, does have some hand-to-hand combat, so if they can survive this, it's got a pretty good toughness as well. They might be able to fight back a wee bit and hopefully bloody up the nose of one of these Tyranid. But over to the dice tray to see how this hand-to-hand combat phase goes with the Tyranid initiative. Alright, going to start up with the Von Ryan's Leapers here. This is the Leaper's Talons, 12 attacks in total from the 2 models, hitting on 3+. Yeah, not a great roll. A few have fallen off for sure. There we go. So out of that, we have 6 attacks, so that's 50%. It is strength 5 versus toughness 7. So that Siege Cannon team's got, they got some toughness there. So this is going to be 5s to wound. That was actually a pretty good roll. 2 more fallen off though, so 4 6s. Wish I got some of these rolls for my Imperial Guardsmen, but what can you do? -1 to AP, bringing the artillery team up to a 4+ save. They do not have an invulnerable, so if there's anything that has higher attacks, it's not going to be good. But this is 4+. And they have failed 3. 1 has been saved, but there has been 3 wounds delivered. The Siege Cannon is down to 6 wounds. Okay, so the Siege Cannon has survived those first attacks from the Von Ryan's Leaper. However, it now goes over to the Parasite of Mortrex with its clawed limbs. So 6 attacks hitting on 2+. This is the Warlord for this Tyranid force. and one fell off. One wound or one attack did not happen. This is strength 5 versus toughness 7, so again 5s to wound. And still some pretty good rolls there. We got 2 5s and a 6. It is a -1 to AP, bringing our artillery team up to a 4+ save. And 1 has been saved, however 2 are through, and that is another 2 wounds allocated to the siege cannon, so it is now down to 4 wounds. Okay, so the artillery team crew is going to be able to fight back here. It's 3 attacks coming from them. Not a great strength, but you never know. I'm going to direct these towards the Parasite of Mortrex. It's hitting on 4+. So 2 are through. That's, you know, they have bayonets there, their daggers. They have some shovels, of course, because they're Kriegs. They're whacking at these Tyranid with shovels. It is strength 3 versus toughness 5, so they're going to need 5s to wound. And nothing happened there. So the siege cannon is still probably going to be attacked here in this next phase in hand-to-hand combat by even more models, but they're going to try to get one more round off here before they go down. So they're going to be firing again over into that termagant unit, and I'll definitely be rolling that in camera. So just 1 sec, I'm going to get that all set up, and we're going to see if they can take out at least a few more models before they go down. All right, just to paint this picture here, these Krieg are, you know, heroes of the Imperium. Their deaths are going to be, you know, they believe venerated by the Emperor, and they're dying for that cause. So there is a ton of massive creatures coming all around them. They're fending them off with shovels, but they're going to fire 1 more artillery shell off here to try to get as many kills as they can before they go down. So I'm going to be firing at the termagants. I'm going to go to the dice tray while we're live right here. So this is the siege cannon. Hoping for a 6 here this time. Got a 3. Half of that, but we'll take it. It is heavy, so a 5+ turns into a 4+. The siege cannon has not moved. And garbage. So we needed 4s. Got a 1-1 and a 3. That valiant last stand is not going to happen. The artillery shell did not even fire. So this is what's happening here. We have the Screamer Killer coming in. We have the Parasite of Mortrex coming in. We have the 2 Von Ryan's Leapers coming in. And we will see, again, they do have that toughness 7, so they might be able to withstand some attacks. I'm going to roll this all off camera because that's a lot of dice to get. And I will show you guys if they're still alive, and if not, what they were able to do, or who is the unit that killed them. So I'll be right back with the aftermath. All right, that brings us to the end of the last stand for the Death Korps of Krieg. They actually did very well. I don't want to make them sound like they're a poor unit. I was just testing them out here because they're a newer army, to me at least. And I'm probably going to be using some of these models in my next Crusade narrative, so it was a really good test. I just finished rolling there for the hand-to-hand combat. So the Screamer Killer went in with 10 attacks. It was able to deliver all the wounds required except for 1. So the siege cannon artillery team still had 1 wound remaining. So they survived all of the attacks from the Screamer Killer. And then it went back over to the Von Ryan's Leapers, and they were the ones that finished it off. But even with that, there was a lot of attacks that went through by the Von Ryan's Leapers, and they saved about 50% of those, but the remaining 50% that went through was enough to finish them off. So that is the end of our siege cannon artillery team. That was only a 335-point Astra Militarum Death Korps of Krieg army, and they actually did very well. So I'm just going to go over and show you guys the tally there. So this is what they were able to finish, which is actually quite impressive considering that they were such a small point army. So we have a full unit of Von Ryan's Leapers. We have an additional Von Ryan's Leaper model. We have a single Barb Gaunt. We have 2 Ripper Swarms plus another. So these were in units of 3. They were able to kill off a full unit, but not the way that it was set up on the field. 2 Spore Mines exploded. One of them did nothing to the siege cannon, the other one did 1 wound, and then we have 3 termagants. So not the worst, not the best, but pretty good considering, and I'm very excited to use these guys in their next fight. I think I'm going to be putting on the Custodes next to be the last stand force going in against this Tyranid force of 1,200 points. and we're going to see the Custodies are probably going to come in, as I said at the very beginning of this battle, as the most expensive force point-wise, and also with the least amount of models for those points. Our Dark Angel Inner Circle champions that we had were quite expensive, but they were not as expensive as the Custodies. There were, however, only 4 models there, but they were all character models. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much. Knock on the rust off here. It's been a little while since the Last Stand series. Keep checking out the channel. Tons of content now on there, and we'll be back hopefully pretty soon to see the Custodies take on this Tyranid force. So thanks again, and yeah, if you guys haven't yet, please like, subscribe so you don't miss any of my content. Thank you. Bye-bye.